Hey, everybody, and welcome to the DLF Trade Show on the DLF YouTube channel. Russ Fisher, Dynasty Outhouse, Addison Hayes at AmazeHayes _ are here to talk about football players. Not just football players, fantasy football players. Not just fantasy football players, relevant fantasy football players. No, no, I think that's as far as I can go. So we have finally run out of topics of just going back to what we did last year. So we're trying to figure out what to do, and I realized that we have some relevant stuff we can talk about, and it's not necessarily stuff that is surprising. So we can use trades that have happened in the past couple of days instead of waiting for stuff to catch up. So first, we're going to talk about DeAndre Hopkins for some reason choosing to sign with the Titans.
Rip.
Well, I have better feelings than that. It's not like that much better feelings, but look, if there's one wide receiver that I don't care that he's old, I don't care that he's on a new team, and I don't care that there's the chance he might be playing with a very inexperienced quarterback halfway through the season, it's because DeAndre Hopkins is just that good. Like, he's one of those wide receivers. He's probably like the wide receiver in the league right now. Him and Adams. Like when Devontae Adams moved, they're just like, I don't care. It's fine. And we saw it was fine. DeAndre Hopkins, don't care. He'll be fine. Could have picked a better place. How often do you want an older wide receiver to sign with the Patriots? Usually, no, don't go to the Patriots. Don't go to the Patriots. I wanted Hopkins to go to the Patriots. First of all, he's good, so he would fit into whatever the hell Belichick wants to do. He played with Bill O'Brien before, though that's when things got a little shaky, but that was more his GMing skills than his coaching skills.
Mm-hmm.
But even still, and for an us thing, Nuke on one side with Juju either on the slot or on the other side, that's great.
Like 2019 vibes all over again.
That's really what I was hoping for. And I kind of like this for Treylon Burks because he's doesn't have to be an alpha right away, but also long term. Oh no, Treylon Burks gets to learn how to play wide receiver from DeAndre Hopkins. I'm very sad about that. Like that's a good thing. It might, if you were hoping for that breakout this year, probably not going to really happen, but still long term, like that makes me like Burks a little more. He might be able to get him cheaper too. But we're not here to talk about him. We're here to talk about DeAndre Hopkins. And in a 12-team, one quarterback league, DeAndre Hopkins got traded for the 105.
Oof.
Wow. So at least it's one quarterback. So we're not talking like JSN, or like Jahmyr Gibbs. Like, this is at least along the lines of like that Quentin Johnston, Zay Flowers, which when you say that out loud, it's not as bad, but I would still want to go 2-3 spots back, like past that Kincaid area. Well, I would probably take Hopkins over Kincaid, but still, Hopkins coming in at 157.7, the 105 at 304.9. Like that just says what you need to know about trading Hopkins for the 105. But I guess let's take a step back and let's forget about this price right now. Addison, if you have a competing team that either you won last year or made it deep into the playoffs, would you be looking to put Hopkins on your team?
No, not really. I just don't like this. I don't like the signing at all. I really don't.
Yeah, it's a little upsetting. Like, you wanted him to go someplace to compete, like go get a ring or something, and that's not going to happen in Tennessee.
Right. I tweeted out right after he signed, because I saw a lot of people saying, "Oh, well, we've seen AJ Brown have success in this Titans offense as like the lone alpha wide receiver one, where they're still pass heavy with Derrick Henry. Ryan Tannehill was still the quarterback. That was just a couple years ago, right before he got traded to Philly. So why can't DeAndre Hopkins just do the same thing?" And my issue with that is when you look back at who else the Titans had in the receiving core back then was AJ Brown, yes, was the alpha wide receiver one, but he was only seeing like 110, 115 targets. Yeah. He was so efficient with those targets because he's that good, because he's AJ Brown, that he was able to be really, really good for fantasy. But you look after that, The next best wide receiver in those years was Nick Westbrook Ikine, Chester Rogers,
I
like
forgot how random lower guys just started to kill it at
it
some
just
point in Tennessee.
yeah, it was. I remember because I write the Dynasty waiver wire article in season and do the videos and stuff, and I remember I'm just like every single week it felt like I added a new Titans wide receiver to that list just because somebody else had to be the wide receiver 2 from AJ Brown, and when AJ Brown got hurt, somebody had to be the wide receiver 1. But Treylon Burks is so much better than all those random guys.
Yeah.
Chico Konkwu is better than all of those guys, and then like you said too, maybe it's not Brian Tannehill all season. Maybe they do pass the torch over to Will Levis at some point because they're not doing well. They just want to see what they have in their rookie. That could also not be good for DeAndre Hopkins. So if you're competing and you're going after a wide receiver, I would not be looking at DeAndre Hopkins. I'd be going for, at least in terms of ADP, Keenan Allen was one spot ahead of DeAndre Hopkins in June ADP. So if you just can go get Keenan Allen for the same exact price as Hopkins, I would much rather do that. If you can go get, honestly, even just go get like Mike Evans. Like, I know we don't necessarily love Baker Mayfield, but I feel like Mike Evans is going to be solid enough that I trust at least the pass volume that Tampa Bay is going to have because they're going to be losing every single game. And Mike Evans is just going to be probably a target hog. I think that there's just better options for you if you're competing than DeAndre Hopkins. And especially if you're debating between him and a rookie like Quentin Johnston or Zay Flowers, which I do think that this trade, when you apply those names to this draft pick, it does make sense because in that same ADP, Quentin Johnston's wide receiver 33, Zay Flowers was wide receiver 36, DeAndre Hopkins was wide receiver 38. And that was before we had the landing spot. So maybe you feel better about now that he's signed, maybe you don't feel better about it, but that was at least, he was still in that range of the 1.05. That I think this trade still kind of makes sense, even though it's weird to say, well, mid first for DeAndre Hopkins, but.
Well, let's move to the next one because this is a lot closer and I think puts it in a better perspective. 12-team Superflex, DeAndre Hopkins and the 409 for James Cook and the 307. Hopkins coming in at 112, 409 coming in at 8. For a total of 120, James Cook 92.5, the 307 38 for a total of 130.5. So close enough. I don't care about James Cook. I don't know what will ever make me feel safe about starting a Buffalo running back. Just because I would need to see multiple weeks of Josh Allen running the ball less. No less running in touchdowns.
Or Damian Harris gets hurt.
And it's I meant like a running back, not just specifically Cook. But yes, it would need to be someone who is almost workhorsing and someone who is actually getting those goal line carries, who is getting those, 4th and 1s, 3rd and 2s. And it's not just Josh Allen pushing it forward because Josh Allen is taller and bigger than probably all of the running backs. He's a giant man built like a linebacker. So him literally just standing up and falling down gives you 2-3 yards.
For real. Yep.
So I would do this. I would send Cook and a 3rd for Hopkins in a 4th and feel completely fine about it because at this point, I understand that low-end wide receiver 2s are very, very replaceable. Hopkins' ceiling, even on the Titans, I think is higher than the RB2 ceiling of James Cook, and the picks I just don't care about.
So I kind of disagree with that a little bit. Not much, though, to really make an argument about it. Like, I'm taking the James Cook side on this one.
Yeah.
Because I think if they both hit their median outcomes, I think you might be happier having the RB2 versus the wide receiver 2 or like a top 30 wide receiver, with DeAndre Hopkins. But fast forward then a year from now, you're going to be way happier to have James Cook, I think, than you will DeAndre Hopkins.
But this is a move to push towards now.
Sure, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know if you necessarily can sit here and say that Hopkins is a better win now asset than James Cook. And then you're just you get 8 years younger and have more insulated value moving forward. And they might score the same amount of points, I think that's well within the range of possibilities. I think it's just as likely as it is that Hopkins outscores Cook by 3-4 points per game, and vice versa, where Cook outscores Hopkins by that same amount. But I
So
think that at the end of
points
the day,
per
they're both going to
game.
score similarly.
Points per game. Okay, well, James Cook had a really rough beginning of the season, but let's start off. DeAndre Hopkins had 17 points per game this season.
Right, but that was in the Cardinals offense with Kyler Murray for a majority of that.
Dock him a couple of points. Let's bring it down
Without
to
Hollywood Brown for a majority of those games as well too. Like he was
down to
the wide
13.
receiver.
Let's drop it down to 13, 14 then. Fine. Let's
Okay.
hold on. I need to adjust this because let's start at week 8 because that's when Cook actually started getting play time.
I think he averaged 9 or 10 after
8.5
okay.
after the bye week.
So if you get a little bit more improvement on James Cook and he gets into the double digits,
You're wrong. It's fine. It's okay for you to be wrong every once in a while.
I'm willing to take the predicted production hit that I don't know is necessarily going to be there or be as wide as people think for the insulated value moving forward. I don't like DeAndre Hopkins in Tennessee. That's basically what we're finding.
No, it absolutely makes sense. Like this absolutely could be a 1-year thing. They're horrible. And he's like, no, I'm just done. Like there's lots of risk to Hopkins right now, but I still think the points will be there this year. And I love this because the next on here it goes Russ. WTF is this? There was a trade in a trade addicts league. All right, I need to breathe. Christian Kirk, DeAndre Hopkins, Tyler Lockett, and Tyler Higbee. 24 second, 24 second, 25 second, 25 third, 25 third, 24 fourth, 25 fourth. This is someone who just said, I have a couple of picks left. Let me find a team that wants to rebuild and offer them all of my picks and see what I can get. Clearly, this is something you should do in your leagues because I think this is a great payout for those picks. Thirds and fourths are very much just whatever, especially in 25. Seconds are the only things that I'm just like, okay, those are valuable trade chips, regardless if you draft them or you just want to trade them away. Christian Kirk, DeAndre Hopkins, Tyler Lockett, and Tyler Higbee. The first 3 players will slot in most weeks, if not fine, if you want to call them bye week replacements or flex spots. And Tyler Higbee does well with a healthy offense, but even if you want to call him your tight end too, at this price, who the hell cares?
I looked at this trade and I was like, dude, I wouldn't even do this deal for I wouldn't even sell Kirk for this by himself.
I would sell for 24 seconds and a 25 second. I would.
Nah, not worth it to me.
But yeah, that definitely got away from the person who traded away the players.
I typed in DeAndre Hopkins and this was the first trade that popped up in
this happened,
and I saw it was in TA3, and I'm like, oh.
This happened literally right as I hit the go live button on StreamYard yesterday, and I'm just like, I'm not putting that in the sheet. And then Rocky's like, all right, well, you talk, I'll type then. And I'm like, but then you're going to make me read this out loud. And then I had to read it out loud again today. So thanks for that. The next player we're going to talk about, player close to our hearts. The next 2 players are running backs who are on the tag and did not sign an extended contract. And the chance is there for them to hold out. And we need to see if it's worth it to get out now while you can, or maybe buy that discount, because a couple missed games does not make Saquon Barkley or Josh Jacobs less attractive to me, even for the season. If my team is competing, which is the only time you should be going after players like Barkley or Jacobs anyway, 3 games isn't the biggest deal. So let's go. 12 team super flex. Oh, this is a big boy trade already. CeeDee Lamb and Saquon Barkley for Chris Olave, Breece Hall, and Rondale Moore. All right, so this is a 2-for-2 with a Rondale Moore kicker. So CeeDee Lamb coming in at 739, Saquon Barkley 542 for a total of 1281. Chris Olave 613, Breece Hall 600, and Rondale Moore 51 for a total of 1263. So this is on the nose, close enough, more or less pick your poison. I really don't want to say I like the younger players, but I think I like the younger players. Value-wise, I think that really is the answer. Production-wise, I think Lamb and Barkley are safer, again, even with the threat of a holdout. But man, halfway through the season, you might be really sad you gave up those young players to go get Lamb and Barkley.
Yeah, it's hard to say that you don't want the Lamb side when he's so clearly the best player in this deal. I think there is that argument to just say, I want the best player in the deal, and you get a top 5 dynasty running back on top of that too. And all you had to give up was a top 10 dynasty wide receiver that we have a lot of hope and potential for, but maybe 2023 isn't the year. Maybe he's a 2024 guy. Maybe he's just really solid. Maybe he never reaches that CeeDee Lamb potential that we're hopeful for. But
Yeah.
there's a world where he doesn't. Brees Hall could be iffy if he comes back from ACL injury and they don't give him a workload or all that other kind of stuff. Dalvin Cook got injured after his ACL return. Saquon Barkley got injured after his ACL return. 2023 could be rough for Hall if certain things play out. And Rondale's Rondale. But at the same time, when I first put this in here, I was like, it's really weird to me that Rondale Moore is the reason why I would like the younger player side, the youth, because I really like Rondale this year.
I've always liked Rondale, and now that he's their best pass catcher.
No, he's the wide receiver too from Hollywood.
But I forgot Hollywood was still there.
How dare you?
This is so hard to decide. But like, absolutely, if my team is not this year, going for the younger guys just seems like I guess this is just a really good trade is what it comes down to.
Yeah,
like this is talent levels pretty close, or at least guys you feel like should reach the potential of the other two. We have enough faith in Olave and Hall that they should be hitting that, top 7-ish wide receiver and top 5 running back. And then you get Rondale Moore.
Yeah. I think it's one of those deals that if you got offered this, I'm just keeping whatever. I'm just going to hit decline no matter which side I have.
Yes.
And I'm just like, not so much that like, I just don't know how to compute this in my head, but it's just, this is an excellent, I'd reply back. I'd be like, this is a fantastic trade offer. I really, really like it. This is super fair. I'm
not going to do it.
I'll just keep my side because I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, the next one is a lot more interesting. And this I also like because this does feel like it's this year versus this year, and you're just buying that little bit of a dip. Because it's Saquon Barkley for Austin Eckler and Elijah Moore. Now, all things considered, if this contract thing wasn't a thing, I would kind of not put them value-wise equally, just because the 2 years on Eckler's side does make a bit of a difference, especially what's going on with his team also. But points-wise, yeah, Eckler will probably score a little more, but negligible. And Elijah Moore doesn't sway anything for me in this, because while I want Elijah Moore to be a thing, I'm going to have to wait and see that one. But this is absolutely, all right, well, I have Austin Eckler on my team. I'm competing. And it'd be cool to get younger, and I don't think Saquon's going to hold out. And I can get younger, and I can get Saquon. I would spend Elijah Moore to go make that swap. Again, this is very faith-based. This is, I don't think, or at least like what I said before, like, okay, he holds out 2 games and then comes back. In which case, again, if you're super, super competing, if your team is very, very good, and if you have Austin Eckler on your team, chances are you were good last year. Those 2 games that he holds out shouldn't be the biggest deal of one player being out. So if you're telling me I can get 15 games of Saquon and then the future versus Eckler, I'll take Saquon in that. Like, I love this trade. I think it's a lot of fun because it really is someone planting that flag of, no, Saquon will be good, and I'm here for that.
It's a lot of dynasty theory. Like, how do you approach the running back position when you're in a win now mode, right? Because I like the thought process behind this. If you have Saquon Barkley and you're saying, well, I don't really like, what I'm hearing, that there's potentially holdout issues, that he'll have to play some this year to for that to count as like a season played, so that he's not in the same position as he was as he is now next year.
He has to play. like 6 or 7 games for it to count towards
Something like
free
that.
agency, something like that.
Yeah. So if you're worried about Saquon and you're competing and you're like, well, maybe I could just drop down a little bit, I'm willing to gain that age and get something on top of it to make it worth it. And go to, Austin Eckler, or go down to a Nick Chubb or a Derrick Henry, somebody who's still going to be very, very good this season, maybe even outscore Saquon, and get a little extra asset. I like the thought process behind that. I just don't think Elijah Moore is the piece that fills that gap,
Yeah.
to where I agree with you that if I'm on the Eckler side, Moore fills that piece if I'm going to get Saquon Barkley and get those years back and the production for the future. But it doesn't on the opposite side. Like if it was somebody else that had already shown me a more consistent production than Elijah Moore, who's just, basically a projection right now, especially in the Browns offense, or somebody who had like a higher ceiling. Like I really like buying Jameson Williams right now. If Jameson Williams was in this trade instead of Elijah Moore, I'd probably feel better about it. If it was
Yeah.
somebody who was more productive, maybe like his own teammate, Amari Cooper, or,
I mean, well, let's go back to
Brandon
another,
Ayuk,
like
or
maybe Keenan Allen.
another fantastic win now asset
Yeah.
that I think would be really, really good. Christian Kirk is in that list. We're probably getting a little too high to where maybe that trade doesn't get done,
Yeah.
but that would be something that I would feel much more comfortable with moving away from Saquon, gaining that age at running back up to Eckler, because I don't think you have that future with Eckler. I think this is the last elite Austin Eckler season. I think he'll still be solid next year, but not top 3.
So let's move on to the guy who's in a very similar situation, and that is Josh Jacobs, who, while has outscored Saquon pretty constantly in the past couple of years, is valued pretty much lower than him. They're both in the same situation to me. The situation is the second they're on the field, they're fantastic, and I don't worry whatsoever. Like, to me, these are both top 5 running backs production wise the second they're on the field, and all I can do is pray, hope, dream that they don't hold out for more than a game or two, if they do hold out at all. And that's all I'm running with, because anything else makes me sad, and this is a game and I don't want to be sad. So 14-team Superflex, Josh Jacobs and a 24 second for Najee Harris. Josh Jacobs at 407, a 24 second at 115. Najee Harris, 367.7. Caution, Team A is giving up the highest value asset and the most pieces in the deal. I got to be honest, even with the situation being what it is, that second's on the wrong side. I like the idea. If the second was on the other side, I'd love this move. You aren't necessarily getting younger, because while they are 2-3 years in the NFL apart, they're the same age. So Jacobs came in the league at like 19, so that'll happen. So yeah, I get wanting to move off of Jacobs, and I get the want to go trade for Najee, because we've talked about it before. I'm here for an improvement on the season for Najee. But that second should be on the other side.
Yep, I completely agree with you. The only thing that entered my mind as a kind of why the Josh Jacobs side would want to do this is if you really have to believe that there's going to be issues with Jacobs.
Yeah.
And you really, really like Najee as a bounce back player for this season. And because it's a 14-team league, if that second is late, like it's 213, then that's like an early to mid third. So that's fair makes enough. The pick a little bit worse. And this trade gets a little bit closer, but I do agree with you that I still, after all of that stuff, I would rather have Josh Jacobs than even if the pick is on the wrong side on this one. So
12-team 1 quarterback. This is just straight up Josh Jacobs for a first. 524.9 to 246.8. You need to be telling me that this is a very early first, even with the risk of holdout. Even if I decide I'm rebuilding, selling Josh Jacobs for one quarterback first round pick can get very rough. If this falls outside like the top 6, you're along the lines of saying, all right, give me Zay Flowers. Like, I'm not trading Josh Jacobs for Zay Flowers. I don't, even in a super flex league, I don't think I do Jacobs for a first. Even if I'm rebuilding, I find a way to make it, even if I have to make it a bigger deal, I want another something in there. It should be another first, but Jacobs' value has never gotten to whatever it should have been. It's like we got so disappointed with his usage the first 2 years, we never let it catch up when he got the usage we wanted. Like the past 2 years, he's had like 50 something catches, no less the amount of targets. But we still haven't boosted him to the RB2 that he probably, like the RB2 that he should be when he's been scoring as the RB1, 2, or 5 in the past 3 years.
So let me hit you with it. I do believe, because I looked at this dude's roster, I do believe that this has strong potential to not be a playoff team. So you're essentially looking at it as a top 6 pick. But if I told you this was a guaranteed top 5 pick next year, even in a 1 quarterback league, guaranteed top 5 pick. And you're not getting, let me just, I think this team is good enough that it's not Marvin Harrison Jr.
Well, we still have 2 to 3 very good running backs. And Benike, is that the
Igbuka?
Igbuka? I think that's a defensive player. I look at football cards too much. Yeah, like there's going to be about 5 very good, again, as of right now, 5 very good players at the top of 1 quarterback leagues. And then right now, at least, we add 2 quarterbacks in Superflex. So we're going to have a very good first round again. So if you can tell me, like, if you had, like, conditional picks or, like, this trade must be 1 through, like, a non-playoff first, and somehow that's enforceable, which it really just isn't. Yeah, I would make that trade. I would send away Jacobs for a top 5, 24 first in a 1 quarterback league.
Yeah, it definitely makes it a lot better for me. But I do think that you're still missing value there, and we talk about that all the time. Don't make trades based on what the value is going to be in half a year or a whole year from now. Make the trades based on what the value is right now. And even with that being, if you move that up to say it's an early 2024 first, and now it's 525 to even 400, you're still missing.
You're not getting above 400 on that,
right? You're still missing 125 points, which in a 1 quarterback league could be a solid second, or some player that bridges that gap between another first and a second.
All right, but that is the last trade we have on our sheet. And my puppy is getting very sleepy and angry at the people power washing my house. But DLF Trade Show, DLF YouTube channel, Russ Fisher Dynasty House, Addison Hayes, Adam Hayes _ I don't know why I went to that voice. It just sort of happened.
It was.
We'll catch you next time.